Good morning, and welcome to the Alameda Connection on KCSM HD2. I'm your host, Scott Piehler. Each and every Sunday, it's my pleasure to guide you on a journey that focuses on the best that the Bay Area's Island City has to offer. This week is no exception. Alameda's history is forever tied to the sea, and perhaps the most enduring symbol of that relationship is the aircraft carrier CV-12, more commonly known as the USS Hornet. From its storied service in World War II through being an absolutely integral part of the Apollo space program to narrowly avoiding the scrap heap, the USS Hornet may be the most recognizable landmark in all of Alameda. My guest this week is Laura Fees, the Executive Director of the USS Hornet Museum. We'll talk about the history of the Hornet and her namesake ships, the amazing special events that take place on board the Hornet, everything from weddings to a comic book convention, to a rock concert, to one of the most moving ceremonies you will ever see, the naturalization of newly minted American citizens. We'll talk about some of the odd things that are found to this day in the nooks and crannies of the USS Hornet, the history of some of those who have served aboard the ship, and the fact that the Hornet may be one of the most haunted ships on the water. And in one of the more surprising findings, the fact that some of the candy in the old snack bar may still be edible. I know you'll enjoy my conversation today with Laura Fees, the Executive Director of the USS Hornet Museum. That's the subject on today's Alameda Connection here on KCSM HD2. Well, good morning, Laura, and welcome to the Alameda Connection.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
First up, happy 250th to the U.S. Navy.
Happy birthday, Navy. It's been very exciting.
That must have been a lot of fun to be part of that.
It was a lot of fun. There's a whole bunch of background, of course, about the current state of the shutdown. But we were able to celebrate. It was a nice wet day, and the Navy, Navy themed. So what can you ask for more?
First of all, how long has the Hornet been a museum?
The Hornet has been a museum. It opened in 1998.
Let's walk through a little bit of the history of the Hornet. How many vessels were named the Hornet?
There have been 8 ships called Hornet. One of the reasons we were such a part of the 250th in the region was because the first 2 ships of the Continental Navy were the Hornet and the Wasp.
Really?
So there has been a Hornet since 1775, on and off.
So let's take a little bit of the history from the CV-8 to the CV-12. People think, oh, that was Jimmy's ship. Well, sort of, kind of. We go back to the CV-8.
We definitely celebrate the legacy, but we do try to make it very clear in all of our text panels and messaging that it is not technically our ship. It's our legacy. Doolittle, of course, topical to the region because Doolittle Street here in Alameda, the Pier 3 that Hornet is currently docked at is the one that they left at when they sailed for the Doolittle raid. Hornet CV-8 launched in 1942 for World War II in the Pacific Theater. The Doolittle raid was the first offensive strike against the Imperial Japanese Navy after Pearl Harbor. It's a very historic raid. Doolittle raid leaves from Alameda, proving essentially that we too can touch Japan like they could touch us.
Okay.
And the Japanese hadn't thought that we were capable of it, so it was more just for the morale. They crammed too many Air Force bombers on the other ship's deck, more than they should, bigger planes than they should have. They basically told these pilots, you're volunteering to do this, we will not give you enough fuel to come back to the Hornet.
Oh, wow.
So they had plans to crash land or land in China. They ended up mostly crash landing, but it was an all volunteer pilots. They were basically going to make a point for America. Extraordinary story. And then that Hornet did that successfully, as far as anyone was mostly concerned.
With a remarkably low loss of life, as I recall, for a mission that could have gone pear-shaped.
More people survived from it than one would expect, yes, for being told you cannot come back home. I mean, you can. The goal is to get you back home, but you will not be coming home the way that you came. That Hornet did that, came back, started serving in the Pacific Theater actively, was ultimately sunk in the Battle of Santa Cruz Islands.
Okay.
When it was sunk, our Hornet was under construction. Its keel had been laid.
Under a different name.
Correct. So it was going to be called the Kearsarge.
Ah.
So in fact, we have a plate near the keel that is stamped Kearsarge with our original name still there. Then the Hornet sank. The Navy, in its naming legacy, said, you're going to be the Hornet now. While under construction, our name was changed, and we launched in 1943 as the USS Hornet CV-12. So the 12th aircraft carrier built by the United States.
Got it.
And that's why I got the 12 stamped on the side of us. From there, launching in 43, we fought in 59 active combat missions in the Pacific Theater, and we're a remarkably lucky ship for all that. Shot down more enemy aircraft than any of our sister ships. So there were 24 ships built like Hornet.
The Essex class?
The Essex class, correct. So there were 24 built on our blueprint Today, 4 of those 24 are still remaining, but not one sank in World War II.
Wow.
All of them made it through the war under their own power. So it was a good
incredible
build. Yeah.
And then the CV-12, for those of a certain age, will remember from Apollo.
As a museum, you can't ask for a better historic bookends on a career for a vessel. So 59 active combat missions in World War II, Pacific Theater, fighting the Imperial Japanese Navy. We didn't do much in Korea. We were doing a Mediterranean sea cruise. In Vietnam, we'd been redesignated for anti-submarine warfare. So still active, but not active combat in the World War II sense.
Not in the thick of it.
Not in the thick of it. Then in 1969, as mentioned, we had the honor of being the recovery vessel, not just for Apollo 11, but Apollo 12. So the first 2 lunar landings, we were able to pick them out of the Pacific Ocean, which is the reason we have a presidential seal on our superstructure is because Nixon was on board. So that's very exciting. I mean, opinions of him aside, we had a president on board, so that's pretty cool. But just to have been able to pick up those 2 astronaut groups, we got the best one.
On the Apollo exhibits that are on the ship, are any of those actually from, or are those mock-ups?
Both, yes.
Okay.
This is a short answer. So, for example, our mobile quarantine trailer, it is one of 6 built by Airstream for NASA.
Okay.
Technically,
I did not know that Airstream built those.
Yes, full-on Airstream trailers.
Wow.
So the MQF, mobile quarantine facility we have on board, it's a specialized Airstream trailer, but it is one of 6. Technically, it was for Apollo 14.
Okay.
Smithsonian's got all the best stuff, but they let us have the one from 14. But it is one of 6 authentically built. The Sea King helicopter is representative of the ones that picked up the astronauts out of the water. It itself is not the one that did so. The one that did so actually later sank in a standard mission. Ours, though, is a movie prop from the movie Apollo 13. So we've got a movie star on board. And then we have an Apollo capsule. And that is a test capsule. It is not, if you go and you'll see that the panels are flat, there's no switches or dials, so it's all like a facsimile. However, what is neat about that particular capsule is we have a personal history with that capsule as we helped NASA during the testing phases.
Oh, wow.
So we actually picked up that capsule out of the water as well as the Apollo 11 and 12 capsules.
Sort of a proof of concept.
Exactly. So that's AS-202 that we have on board. It is, of course, representative of the size, shape, and conditions that the astronauts would have been in during their mission.
And if anybody has any concept that it was glamorous being in those things, just go to the Hornet.
Exactly. We say, okay, they got out of that capsule, they landed in the Pacific Ocean. The first thing they get greeted with is helicopter team opening up the hatch and throwing suits, biological isolation garments at them, basically spraying them down with Lysol. Literally, they get gassed with Lysol in their return. They shut the hatch, wait for them to get changed, open it back up. Okay, now you can come back out. So it was nothing glamorous about that return journey, except that they survived it.
Of course, now I realize I need to combine, previous guest on the show was Evan Philippi from the Pacific Pinball Museum.
Oh, yes.
I need to get him to get you an Apollo 13 pinball machine to put on the ship.
I've been asking Evan. Hi, Evan, if you're listening.
The Oakland Aviation Museum has an F-14 pinball machine.
Very good.
So
all right. Evan, goals, Evan. Just putting that out there.
And the thing that makes that pinball machine interesting, it's the only pinball machine ever made that has a 13-ball multi-ball.
Okay, they're showing off, though. That's fine.
So, speaking of entertainment, I have to ask, just because I'm such a geek, how many times do you get asked if the Hornet was in Star Trek?
Oh, not as much as I would love.
Okay.
We often take people, or one of my shticks is that on one of the tours we take down near the engine room, there is a fantastic, it's called an escape scuttle.
Okay.
And I always point to it and I say, Roddenberry made Star Trek look like, because he was in the Navy.
Right.
So he was inspired by sites just like this. So, I mean, that's a quintessential 4-story ladder they have to climb up in a tight tube. But I'm like, these are the kind of images he saw that helped him come up with ideas for Star Trek.
And for those of you who are going to be at trivia night at your local bar, in case anybody ever says, well, that was filmed in Alameda, A, no, it wasn't. It was down in Coronado. B, it was the CV-61 USS Ranger.
It's true.
And C, it wasn't even a nuclear vessel. It was
true. Yeah, no, not enough people come in with that quote. I mean, besides my dad, who just comes off with it. It pops off every time he visits, but we need more of that.
You have the copter from Apollo 13.
Yes.
Any other sort of oddball, interesting pop culture ephemera sitting on board?
The one that immediately comes to mind is, of course, our Tomcat. That never flew off Hornet. It's too big, too new, I should say. It's too heavy to fly off our catapults to be launched on them. But we got it because Top Gun.
Oh, okay.
That Tomcat itself, not a movie star, but it representative. Everyone wants to see the Tom Cruise plane. So,
right.
I mean, it's a solid Navy plane, but did not fly off Hornet. Now, Hornet herself has been in a few movies.
Really?
Yes. We have a little, I don't think we have a full IMDb page, but we do have some movie credits on our website.
Okay.
Maybe nothing award-winning, but it's always fun when people come to film on Hornet. It's not happened for a bit. XXX State of the Union, can't recommend.
Oh, okay.
But Hornet's in it.
But okay, no, that's fair. Credit's a credit. What is it about the Hornet that most surprises visitors when they get there?
I would say the scale, although it's always interesting. I could always tell a modern Navy sailor when they come on board and say, it's so small. I'm like, well, you've been on a new carrier's friend. Let's visit the old one. Generally the scale, it almost looks bigger on the inside than the outside, a little Doctor Who here and there. Tactically, what people seem to be most surprised at is that we don't receive recurring Navy funding.
Okay.
We are a private 501c3. I make a joke that Hornet is a sideways skyscraper partially underwater. and boats are expensive regardless.
Right. I was going to ask you later, but I'll ask you now when you got that. What does it take to keep her running?
Actually, volunteers is the real answer, and cash. But volunteers outnumber staff 10 to 1 on Hornet, which is amazing. They do so much work that we could not pay for, and they do it because they love it. They do it because it's a little ASMR moment for them to chip paint. Or one of my favorite examples to give is we have a aircraft restoration. So you don't have to come in knowing anything about aircraft restoration. If you have the passion, we will teach you. And one of those best examples is we had a group of teenagers come in 2 years ago in 2023, and we gave them our Trojan. It's a training prop plane.
Okay.
It's up on our flight deck right now. They were given the project of restore that, paint, chip, put the vinyl on, do all the work. And they had adult guidance, of course, but they crawled all over that. Still today, we have actually a decent number of high school level air group volunteers because of things like that. They pass the message along. Just giving that opportunity. And then during Veterans Day 2023, one of my favorite photos to use is we had Admiral Dwyer visit. Admiral Dwyer is an Alameda native. Right.
I remember when he came on. I remember that story.
Wonderful person. They were able to show him the work that they'd done. And he was a good sport about it. I mean, he climbed up there and was letting them point out things in the cockpit. It's just a great opportunity for them to show off their work to a very important person.
You must be field trip central.
Hornet welcomes about 85,000 visitors through our door every year. About 13,000 of those are students through our education program. So it's a hefty percentage.
What radius do you track people from?
All over is the short answer. Once in a while internationally. Alameda, of course, definitely. We have our bread and butters. Essentially the commuting hub of the Bay. And then towards the Sacramento area, we get a lot of visitors from there too. If you ask anyone if they know of the Hornet, somehow 95% of the answer is, I spent the night on the Hornet. It's always the overnight that keeps in people's mind.
Oh, sure.
So it's an interesting statistic, just kind of anecdotally, to get in the wild, because somehow it's always the overnight. I'm like, you just never visited during the daytime? We're open then too, but I appreciate the overnight. That really sinks in a core memory for people.
Exhibits that you have on board are amazing. And one thing that surprised me the first time I went there was the incredibly detailed history of what it took to actually get an aircraft carrier called into existence. Just the very concept of flying an airplane off of a ship. Just ridiculous history.
First of all, I appreciate the quality comment. My history as I come through the exhibits track, collections care and exhibits track. So that's pleasant for me to hear. We definitely try to balance that restored spaces and traditional museum galleries. We really try to highlight the ship itself, but you can't understand the ship without understanding the context in which she sailed. So we definitely try to introduce those concepts as high level as we can. Right. That includes the history of the aircraft carrier. So we do have a exhibit about that. Fun fact, the first landing on a ship happened right here in the Bay Area.
Really?
It's true. A little local history. So back in the prop planes, biplanes kind of thing, you go from there to just the concept of having a floating airfield. The Americans did invent the aircraft carrier as a ship type, although other people were working on designs.
Right. Wasn't it the Brits that figured out to put the diagonal landing?
They came up with the angled deck, and we are grateful for them, because the method we had before was having to move parked aircraft. You could either launch or land. You can't do both. And they were like, but you can do both. And I'm like, say more. Let us know.
You've got a lot of great permanent exhibits, some rotating exhibits. What's currently in the rotating exhibits, and is there anything else coming up? Because some of the rotating exhibits are just fascinating.
Thank you so much. Right now we have in our rotating gallery the larger one. So we have one on the second deck, which is one floor down from the main deck that people walk in on. And that one is currently about the Bay Area. during World War II.
Okay.
A lot of Bay Area, it's so fresh and new and people come in from all over that we often forget how the Bay Area came to be. And a huge part of that impact was because of the military presence, particularly during World War II.
Mm-hmm.
The Bay Area was the gateway to the Pacific Theater.
Sure.
And the industry, the innovation going on for the war effort, like it or not, innovation happens usually clustered around wartime.
Sure.
But one of the reasons we even have Silicon Valley, NASA, Ames, it's because they were brought in during the war. Richmond shipyards, Kaiser Permanente, that all formed during the war. It has lasting effects. Obviously, currently, there's a very low active military presence in the Bay. It's good to remind people that what we have now is because of these influences in part.
Do you still have the exhibit on the Asian American aviators?
We do. We have a permanent exhibit now. It was moved to permanent status about Asian Americans in the military in general. Right now, we actually have a temporary display that was put in by a USF grad student as her capstone project.
Okay.
And that specifically is about the Korean War, the impact on Korean people and American people in turn.
Is the Hornet still seaworthy, or is she tied to the dock permanently?
So she is currently floating.
Okay.
A lot of museum ships do things different ways, but Hornet is free floating. She is moored to the pier. She cannot move under her own power, is a good way to say it. The Navy doesn't let us have any fun when it really comes down to it. But also, we couldn't afford it even if we wanted to. They did take chunks out of our engineering power systems.
Okay.
Hornet's mileage is a gallon a foot. So we would not have been into that option anyway. But she can still be towed.
Okay.
If push came to shove. It's called a dead ship tow these days.
You do a lot of private events. I think my favorite was in 2022 where Bret Michaels of Poison announced he was doing a corporate gig on the Hornet. How does stuff like that come about?
So the easy answer is that we have an inquiry form on our website. People of all types fill it out. And then we vet from there. So the Bret Michaels one you mentioned is interesting because it came through a third-party event company to take care of events for people.
Okay, and there was the company, MNP? They're like a fastener firm or something?
That sounds right. But for us, it was, I think, Benchmark is the ones who brought them in.
Okay.
So all we knew is Benchmark. But they were describing the event. You know, we were not unaware that there was going to be music on the flight deck and there's going to be 250 people or something like that, similar, and it was going to be from X to X time. But we didn't know about the client, the actual client, or the guest until they announced it themselves, and we're like, okay. I mean, that's more of an NDA thing between the company and the third-party planner. But sometimes it is that. Sometimes it's Jeep who come, like, can we build an obstacle course on your flight deck? And we're like, okay, it sounds cool. The venue offers a wonderful opportunity for creativity. And that's actually one of the perks of the job is seeing some of these events come in you won't see anywhere else. Or it's just like sometimes you're like, no, this is my job. This is just how my day is going to be today. And that's awesome.
I had to laugh in 22 because I was actually out on the point that night. Mm-hmm. And I was walking by the Hornet and I said, that's a really good Poison cover band. Listened. That really sounds like Bret Michaels. It turned out sure, yes. It was Bret. It was with his solo band. But oh my goodness. What other sorts of private events do you see on there? Do people do weddings there?
We do weddings.
Really?
Pretty much anything you could dream of, we can make happen. We do still do a lot of retirements, pinnings, changes of command. So military themed groups come and do things. We have done conferences, showcases, definitely a lot of evening events. We were honored to be the site of the Chamber of Commerce's economic impact. You know, that's a few hundred people and a nice presentation and nice AV setup. The hangar deck is quite large, so we have a lot of flexibility on how we arrange things.
You actually have one event that is one of my favorite pieces of irony in the world.
Okay.
Here we are, a ship instrumental in the defeat of Japan, with an annual anime convention.
Oh.
Carrier Con. Wonderful.
Okay, so Carrier Con is actually my baby.
Okay. Is it? Okay.
I invented it back in 2019 because I'm a nerd. You'll be surprised.
We have much to talk about.
A lot of museum people are nerds, weirdly enough. It somehow, as the Venn diagram overlaps. Anime, of course, is highly attractive, especially to the Bay Area region, but it's of all types. So, you know, you see people cosplaying in Star Trek or Star Wars. We have all the Star Wars costume clubs show up. We have video games. We have voice actors. VTubers.
And you've gotten some names because I'm a geek of high order, and it was a year or two ago. I was like, oh, really? The Peonies from ElfQuest are going to be here.
Oh,
wow.
Yes. So you're like, okay, good. I'm glad. It's friends of the family, actually. So that's how it got arranged.
Whatever works.
If you do cosplay, if you dress up, I'm like, what better background? Like
sure.
Usually you're a boring convention center. Like, one, you're at a museum, so stuff to look at. It's two, like, just take a photo anywhere. Every square inch is a good backdrop for costuming. But it's also inviting people who might not naturally think to visit Hornet, but who have an affinity for it. CuriouCon attendees are actually wonderfully altruistic. As of last year, we started doing a campaign. It's an add-on to our ticketing, and it's like, can you donate to this project?
Right.
So last year it was helping raise funds for the restoration of our ship's theater. This year, currently, it's to have a Gemini roller plate. We have one, and we want to build it out as an interactive.
Oh, neat.
And we just put it as an add-on, and the response is amazing. Like we don't have a demographic who gives like that. We have many give in different ways. Everyone's wonderful, but that one has really responded to that method, and it's been awesome.
And now I'm going to kind of join and work my way in a nice segue to the next topic, because we talked about cosplay. I do a rock solid John Constantine.
Excellent.
Which would probably be perfect to put on the Hornet because you're one of the most haunted ships out there.
We got ghosts. Yeah. it's a good season. It's spooky season. If you believe in ghosts, you could probably have an experience here on the ship. It's fun, honestly. I call it the clickbait history lesson.
Do you have a few paranormal tours? You have an overnight connected?
We do.
Okay.
So actually, we just introduced this month. We're trying a daytime, hour-long. It's more of a ghost stories versus ghost investigations, but that's during the daytime. So if you come visit the museum, that's currently a tour available. It's an hour-long. Get to travel around some ship spaces and hear some spooky stories. We have called the History Mystery, and it's either just a 3-hour evening or an overnight. So those are full-on investigations. We pull out the paranormal investigation equipment.
Oh, wow.
You get to have conversations with the ghosts if you're up for it. And then for the overnight, we do that, and then we're like, okay, now go to sleep. So
switching to something perhaps a little more serious, one of the most moving events I've ever been to, I was at the 2023 naturalization. That's got to swell your heart when you see that.
That is exactly what to me means to like be American, quote unquote. And in these times, it's good to be reminded of what you see, like because Hornet has definitely that perception of hoorah military, and it's like, okay, well this is what it's all about though. This naturalization, getting citizens who worked so hard and so long, and being able to be there with them on the Hornet, which now is their legacy. Like it's they're now Americans as much as anyone else. In fact, they probably worked a lot harder for it than just being born in the area.
They can probably answer a history quiz much better than most of us.
I have seen some of those questions, so I'm like, oh gosh. But being able to host that, and it's an emotional event.
Now, a funny story that you may not be aware of, back in my early radio days in the early 90s in New England, I had a guest on my show who was the head of the now defunct Necco, the New England confectionery people, the people who make Necco wafers.
Necco wafers, okay.
You have a little display, like a convenience store that the sailors could buy from, and there's some candies there, some of which are Necco wafers.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you this because I was on with the head of Necco, and this was early 90s, and I asked, how long do Necco wafers last? And he said, we found some in the lab from the 1940s. They were fine. So your Necco wafers may actually be edible.
I'm here for it. You know, that is a question we sometimes get to ask ourselves on the Hornet, because we do honestly find things squirreled away.
Right.
Still to this day. Yep. When we're restoring a new space, there'll be something a sailor stashed in the overhead. And sometimes it's liquids or like coming through the bottle, and sometimes it's candy like a Necco wafer. And we're like, you know what? I think this one's still stable. We might let it sit.
The Necco wafers, apparently, I have proof positive they last for 40 plus years, so you should be okay.
That's both unfortunate but good to know. I like that.
So let's shift a little bit to Laura. What's your journey to Alameda and your journey to the Hornet?
I was born and raised in Santa Rosa, so in North Bay, Sonoma County. My undergraduate degree was at UC Davis, and I got art history, minoring in classics. And then my advisor and I talked, and he ultimately said, okay, so what do you want to do? I assume that's something one should ask any art history degree major. And he said, the two choices generally are a museum or art gallery. And I'm like, well, I don't really like modern art, so I love history. SF State has a museum studies degree, which is a thing one can get a master's degree in. So I went in for that. My specialty was artifact care. I wanted to work at a castle. The Bay Area doesn't have castles.
Not a lot, no.
But it does have a fortified airfield. I discovered Hornet during one of my volunteering alongside the Schultz Museum. Charles Schultz, that's based in Santa Rosa. Lovely museum. Yes. Great people. They went to Hornet because of Snoopy's tie to the Apollo program. And that's where I discovered that Hornet exists. I'm like, this seems interesting. So between my gap year of undergrad and grad school, I started there as a docent, a tour guide, learned everything from oral histories from all the older docents. They started bragging that I was in the graduate program. Effectively, they got me the job by upselling me so much to the staff, I suppose, as a collections manager, so artifact care. And then I bounced around. I have been employed there for 13 years, one more year before that as a volunteer. So I've done a lot of jobs there. Graphic design, overnight manager, exhibits manager, artifact care collections manager, as it's called. Got all the way up to director of exhibits and collections, then became, at that time, the title was called COO, then XO, and now executive director.
What keeps you there?
There's something about Hornet. And after being there for over a decade, the professionalization of the museum is there. It's tangible. When I first came on, everyone was very passionate and they were keeping care of it, but not a lot of museum background. Looking at it more of how can we move towards this as a museum with knowledge of what a museum should be looking towards.
Sure.
Something about Hornet gets in you.
Okay.
Whether you're a volunteer or a staff member, we got a lot of lifers on board. It's an amazing place to work, and I love it.
What is one thing you wish more people knew about the Hornet?
We really are a mid to small museum and a big museum body. We love all our visitors and all our education programs, but we rely on those too. And I think some people see us as kind of this, we'll always be there kind of thing. There's no huge concern, but it's one of those things like we do need that active support.
How can people help the Hornet?
Time, talent, treasure is the 3 T's of the nonprofit world. So we love volunteers. Even just expanding awareness, just letting other people know, hey, we exist is always helpful. Volunteerism, memberships. A membership is the best way to support any museum, most museums, I'll say. Engaging with our social media, but come visit.
And I'm going to hit you with the question that I hit all my guests with because it's fun. You've got a visitor coming into town in Alameda. You have to take them out for 3 meals. Where are you going?
Oh gosh. I'm so biased towards our end because
oh sure, that's okay.
I know Park Street's amazing. So many foodie options there.
Right.
Breakfast, Firebrand is a neighbor.
Okay.
So
and they're doing some great stuff.
It's one of the few walkable areas from Hornet, so I'll sometimes trot over as my getting out in the sun moment. All the lunch spots on Webster Street though.
So I'll walk down Webster and see what
somewhere
hits
on
me.
Webster. As a Hornet member and representing kind of that sailor energy, I would say an evening experience would be Forbidden Island. I know that you've already
Oh, yeah, Michael's great.
had them on.
Yeah.
But I got to do a call out for the old sailor.
Website, socials, operating hours, so people know what's up.
Website, uss-hornet.org. Operating hours are long weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 10 to 5. And social medias, I think just Googling USS Hornet Museum, but we have an active Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, basically all major social media platforms. We have YouTube, but you can find us many places. We also have an digital newsletter you can sign up for on our homepage. That gets you information about upcoming events and occasional discount codes and other kind of announcement.
Well, Laura Fees, Executive Director of the USS Hornet Museum. You and I could go on for a long time here, but as they say, the old clock on the wall. But thank you very much. This has been fascinating.
Absolutely. Always appreciated. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure indeed. Take care. Thanks again to Laura Fees, Executive Director of the USS Hornet Museum, for spending time with us this morning on the Alameda Connection. Again, to keep up with everything going on board, check out their website, uss-hornet.org. Again, uss-hornet.org. If you're looking to follow them on Instagram, their Instagram handle is USS Hornet Museum. That's all one word, no spaces or punctuation, on Instagram, USS Hornet Museum. Coming up on the next episode of the Alameda Connection, with the holiday season in full swing, it's time to pay a visit to one of Alameda's most beloved holiday traditions, as well as one of our most famous exports. I sit down with Pam Drake, the founder and director of Alameda's world-famous tap dancing Christmas trees. It's a great story as we find out how a one-time ending to an annual dance recital blossomed to become a 35-year tradition that has spread its wings from Alameda to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York City. We'll also spend some time talking with Pam about her career as a dancer, just what it takes to become a great tap dancing Christmas tree, the benefits of dance for people of all ages and genders, and what it means to be a dancer for life. That's next Sunday on the Alameda Connection, Pam Drake of the Tap Dancing Christmas Trees, right here on KCSM HD2. If you'd like to keep up with what's coming up in the future here on the Alameda Connection, the best way to do that is to follow the show on Instagram, @Alameda Connection. If you have an idea for a future guest on the show, please feel free to send me an email. That email address is alamedaconnection@gmail.com. Once more, alamedaconnection@gmail.com. If you missed a past episode, you can find each and every one of them in the YouTube archive. That channel, simply @Alameda Connection on YouTube. There you can find all of our episodes right back to the very first one. Thanks as always to the California Historical Radio Society for providing our interview location for our sit-down lower fees. And, as I say each and every week, an extra special thanks to guitarist Bill Hart for providing our theme music. The song is called Beachside Isle. It's from his 1999 album, Watch the Sky. If you're searching for Bill's music online, that last name is spelled H-A-R-T. I'm Scott Piehler. I'll catch you again next Sunday morning at 8 a.m. on KCSM HD2 for the Alameda Connection.